Do you hear that, Chancellor? The sound of clanking metal, oil-soaked engines, and primitive warfare? It's humanity's legacy, an orchestra of obsolescence. The High Arbiter's voice dripped with disdain, echoing through the grand chambers of the Galactic Council. Around the circular table, representatives of dozens of alien species chuckled, their bioluminescent faces and chitinous limbs reflecting the ambient light. The Council had convened to discuss Earth, an isolated, unremarkable planet that had dared to defy the Empire's claim. They still cling to their crude, outdated weapons, sneered a reptilian general, tapping a talon against the holographic display of human tanks, planes, and artillery. They've spent centuries perfecting relics from a war they barely survived. I almost pity them. Chancellor Vorth, a towering figure with crystalline skin that shimmered like ice, silenced the room with a single gesture. Pity is wasted on them. They are an anomaly, a species too stubborn to know when they've lost. Let us crush their resistance quickly and rid the galaxy of their eccentricities. The Council erupted into applause, their confidence unwavering. Humanity's defiance, while admirable in its own right, was ultimately futile in the face of the Empire's advanced technology and strategic dominance. Far away, on a storm-battered plain in Earth's countryside, a rusting hulk of metal stood forgotten, a Sherman tank from a bygone era. Its steel hull, weathered by decades of rain and neglect, told a story of battles fought long before the stars had seemed within humanity's reach. In the shadow of the tank, a small group of resistance fighters huddled around a flickering fire. Among them was Captain Elena Torres, a battle-hardened leader with a sharp mind and a scar that ran the length of her cheek, a souvenir from an earlier skirmish with the invaders. "We're running out of time," Torres said, her voice steady but urgent. "The Council's forces are closing in. If we don't find a way to slow them down, the city will fall within days." A young engineer, Max Chun, squatted next to her, his grease-stained hands holding a faded blueprint. "What if we don't need something new?" he asked, glancing toward the silhouette of the Sherman tank. "What if we use something they'd never expect?" Torres raised an eyebrow, following his gaze. "That relic? It hasn't moved in 70 years. Even if we could fix it, what difference would it make?" Max's eyes gleamed with determination. "They think we're predictable, Captain. They believe their technology makes them untouchable. But they don't understand how we fight, how we adapt. A tank like that, it's not just a weapon. It's a symbol. And symbols can inspire people to do the impossible." By the next morning, the tank became the heart of their operation. Engineers, mechanics, and volunteers from the local population worked tirelessly, breathing life into the dormant machine. Its engine groaned as they coaxed it into motion, its worn tracks digging into the earth once more. The restoration was far from perfect. They patched holes with scavenged metal, reinforced the armor with modern alloys, and retrofitted its cannon to fire shells fashioned from salvaged alien materials. It wasn't sleek or sophisticated, but was sturdy, and it worked. As the final touches were made, Torres addressed the gathered fighters. "This tank represents more than resistance. It represents who we are, a species that refuses to be defined by the odds stacked against us. They think our history makes us weak. They're wrong. It makes us dangerous." A cheer rose from the crowd, their fear momentarily replaced with hope. The tank, now christened Ironheart, roared to life, its engine a defiant growl against the approaching storm. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, a junior officer hurried into the room, his expression betraying his unease. "High Arbiter, we've detected unusual movements in Sector 7. Resistance fighters appear to be mobilizing." The High Arbiter didn't look up from the glowing display of Earth's surface. "And let them. They're like cornered prey, desperate flailing. Their struggles only hasten their demise." The officer hesitated, There's one more thing, sir. They've deployed what appears to be an antique terrestrial vehicle. A tank. The room erupted into laughter. A tank? The reptilian general hissed, his scales rippling with amusement. What's next? Muskets and bayonets. Chancellor Voris smirked, his crystalline form shimmering ominously. Let them play their games. Their history will be their undoing. As twilight descended over the countryside, Ironheart rolled toward the front lines, its crew steeled for the battle ahead. Inside, Torres gripped the controls, her voice steady over the comms. This isn't just a fight for survival. It's a fight for everything they think they've taken from us, our pride, our will, our history. Let's remind them what humanity is capable of. The ground trembled beneath the Sherman's treads as it advanced, a relic of the past roaring defiantly into the future. The battlefield stretched before them, a torn landscape of shattered trees and scorched earth. Alien war machines dotted the horizon, their sleek designs glinting ominously under the pale sunlight. From the command hatch of Ironheart, Captain Elena Torres surveyed the scene with grim resolve. Here they come, Max Chen's voice crackled over the comms. From his station within the tank, he monitored the movements of the alien forces through a jury-rigged sensor system. We're outnumbered 10-1. Elena responded with calm determination. Then we'll give them 10 times the fight they're expecting. The first wave of the Galactic Empire's troops advanced with mechanical precision. Spider-like walkers moved in formation, their segmented legs carving deep furrows into the ground. Behind them, hovercraft bristling with plasma cannons glided into position, their engines emitting an eerie hum. The Sherman tank's engine roared as Elena pressed forward, guiding Ironheart into the thick of the fight. Its ancient treads churned the earth, and its cannon, modified to fire high-impact hybrid shells, swiveled toward the nearest walker. Target locked, muttered Sergeant Malik, the gunner. With a squeeze of the trigger, the tank's cannon erupted in a thunderous boom. The shell slammed into the walker's center mass, detonating in a blinding flash of light. Shrapnel tore through its delicate mechanisms, sending it collapsing to the ground in a tangle of sparking limbs. The aliens hesitated, stunned by the sight of their vaunted technology, felled by what they had dismissed as a relic. The galactic forces quickly regrouped, their commanders barking orders in an alien tongue. Hovercraft surged forward, plasma cannons charging with an ominous glow. The air was alive with the crackle of energy weapons as brilliant streaks of light arced toward the tank. Brace for impact! Elena shouted. The plasma blast struck Ironheart's reinforced armor, sizzling against its exterior. Inside, the crew felt the jarring heat but remained unharmed. Max's modifications had held. They're concentrating fire on us, Max said, his voice tight. They're trying to pin us down. Let them, Elena replied with a steely grin. Malik, give them something to think about. Malik aimed at a cluster of hovercraft and fired again. The shell exploded in their midst, sending 2 of the vehicles spiraling out of control. One slammed into the ground, its energy core igniting in a fiery blast that consumed the soldiers nearby. The aliens' assault faltered once more, their cohesion unraveling under the unexpected ferocity of the resistance. From the Trilene, resistance fighters armed with scavenge rifles and makeshift explosives emerged, taking advantage of the chaos. They moved like shadows, striking swiftly before retreating into the cover of the forest. Elena watched their movements from her perch. They're learning. Good. The tank became the centerpiece of the human counteroffensive, its presence emboldening the fighters. Where the galactic forces had expected fear and retreat, they found cunning and defiance. One of the larger walkers, a towering behemoth with 6 legs and a plasma turret, lumbered into the fray. Its turret rotated toward Ironheart, charging a blast that could melt through steel. Max, we need that turret offline, Elena barked. "I've got an idea," he replied, rapidly adjusting the controls. "Hold tight." The tank surged forward, its engine straining as it closed the distance to the walker. The turret fired, but the blast scorched the ground mere meters behind Ironheart. "Malik, aim for the joint in its front leg." Elena ordered. Malik adjusted the cannon and fired. The shot struck true, severing the walker's leg with a deafening crack. The massive machine toppled, its plasma turret firing wildly as it crashed to the ground, taking out several of its own troops in the process. Inside the Galactic Command Center, holographic screens displayed the battlefield in real time. The High Arbiter's crystalline face twisted in disbelief. "This is impossible," he hissed. "How is a single terrestrial vehicle dismantling our forces?" An aide stammered. They seem to be exploiting our tactics, sir. Adapting faster than anticipated." The Arbiter's fist slammed onto the table, sending shards of light scattering. "Send reinforcements." Overwhelm them. Reinforcements poured in, alien dropships releasing waves of infantry and mechanized units. The human resistance, now bolstered by their early successes, dug in for the fight of their lives. The battle raged into the night, the landscape illuminated by the glow of plasma blasts and the fire of hybrid shells. Ironheart became a relentless force, its crew pushing the machine to its limits. In one harrowing moment, the tank found itself surrounded. Energy weapons peppered its hull, and the crew worked frantically to keep it operational. Armor integrities dropping. Max shouted. "We don't stop," Elena snapped. "If we fall, so does everyone else." Malik fired the cannon repeatedly, each shot blasting apart the encroaching forces. Resistance fighters rallied around the tank, using its bulk for cover as they launched counterattacks. Finally, as dawn broke, the alien forces began to retreat. Their advanced machinery lay scattered across the battlefield, smoking ruins testament to the Resistance's resilience. Inside Ironheart, the crew was battered but unbroken. Elena leaned back in her seat, her voice heavy with exhaustion but laced with triumph. "They underestimated us. Let's make sure they never do that again." The tank rumbled forward, leading the Resistance toward the next phase of the fight. Back in the Galactic Command Center, the High Arbiter watched the retreat unfold, his confidence shattered. He turned away from the screens, his voice trembling with fury. This is far from over. The scene fades on the smoldering battlefield, the defiant roar of Ironheart echoing as a reminder that humanity's fight had only just begun. The battle for the plains had turned into a turning point in humanity's struggle. Though battered and bruised, the Resistance fighters were emboldened by their victory. News of the triumph spread like wildfire across the globe, carried by encrypted broadcasts and word of mouth. To many, it was more than a military success. It was a symbol that humanity could stand against the Galactic Empire and prevail. At the heart of this newfound hope was Ironheart, the Sherman tank that had defied logic and expectation. Its battered hull was scorched from plasma impacts, its treads worn from endless miles of combat. But it rolled forward unstoppable. It was a relic of the past that had become the spearhead of the future. The Galactic Empire, humiliated and desperate to reassert dominance, launched a massive counterstrike. Waves of dropships descended upon Earth, deploying legions of alien troops and towering war machines. Entire cities became battlefields, and humanity's resolve was tested as never before. Elena Torres and her crew refused to give an inch. The Resistance fighters, inspired by Ironheart, devised new tactics that capitalized on the tank's strengths and the enemy's arrogance. They lured the Empire's forces into narrow urban corridors, forcing their larger vehicles into choke points where the tank's cannon could wreak havoc. Inside Ironheart, the crew worked tirelessly, each member pushing themselves to their limits. Max Chun, the young engineer, continually improvised field repairs to keep the tank operational. "We're running on duct tape and sheer willpower," he muttered as he reconnected a sparking wire. Elena smiled grimly. "Good. That's more than they've got." The final confrontation came in the ruins of a sprawling city once teeming with life. The Galactic Empire had committed its most elite forces, determined to crush humanity in a single, decisive blow. Towering walkers and heavily armored hovercraft moved through the rubble, their commanders confident this would be the end of Earth's defiance. But they underestimated the ingenuity of humanity. Resistance fighters, armed with scavenged alien technology and guerrilla tactics, turned the city into a labyrinth of ambushes and traps. Explosives rigged to collapsing buildings crushed advancing units, while snipers picked off officers from hidden vantage points. At the center of it all was Ironheart. The tank, though barely holding together, became the rallying point for the resistance. It charged through the streets, its cannon roaring as it tore through alien formations. "Malik, take out that walker," Elena barked, pointing toward a towering six-legged machine that loomed ahead. Malik fired, the shell striking the walker's weak point and sending it crashing into a building. The explosion lit up the night, and a cheer erupted from the fighters around them. The Galactic forces faltered, their lines breaking under the relentless assault. The High Arbiter, watching from an orbiting command ship, realized too late that the battle was lost. As dawn broke over the ruins, the remaining alien forces retreated, their sleek dropships rising into the sky in disarray. Humanity had done the impossible. They had forced the Galactic Empire into a full retreat. Inside Ironheart, Elena leaned back in her seat, exhaustion finally catching up to her. She looked at her crew, Max, covered in grease and grime but grinning triumphantly. Malik, his hands still on the controls, his eyes shining with pride. "We did it," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and relief. "We showed them what it means to be human," Max replied. Outside, the resistance fighters gathered around the tank, their cheers echoing through the shattered streets. The sight of Ironheart, battered but unbroken, was a reminder of their shared resilience. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council convened once more, their confidence shattered. Whispers of humanity's defiance spread throughout the galaxy, reaching species that had long suffered under the Empire's rule. Humanity's victory wasn't just a triumph for Earth, it was a spark of hope for countless others. Elena stood atop Ironheart, addressing a crowd of resistance fighters and civilians. "They thought our history was a weakness," she said, her voice carrying across the rubble-strewn square. "They thought the tools of our past made us vulnerable. But our history is what makes us strong. It's a reminder that we've faced extinction before and survived." The crowd erupted in cheers, their spirits unbroken despite the challenges ahead. The camera pans out, capturing the defiant image of Ironheart standing amidst the ruins, a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit. Above, the sky cleared, sunlight breaking through the clouds. A new dawn for Earth and for all who dared to hope. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they would not bow, not break. They would fight, and they would win.